So now I have marksmen that are definitely leveling. And they are leveling a lot. And even the sledges are leveling a good amount. Well, here's EMP number 2, but there's also a skill specialist. And you know, I already have 2 combat powers, as has my opponent. So skill spec can definitely do some good. I pick the skill spec, my opponent picks another spell. You can see where the spell Andy part is coming from in this game. Oil should also help a good amount here. It only has 2 rounds of cooldown now because of the skill spec. It will be ready in sync, I think, with the next electromagnetic blast. Though I could be wrong. I think it's gonna be in sync. Well, actually, it should be, right? I'm not too sure. Anyway, shields do come down because there is an EMP being offered, and I definitely know my opponent likes combat powers, as do I. We have both already committed into Spell Andy, and we have managed to deal surprisingly low amounts of damage by around 7 for some of these abilities that are coming out. My opponent decides to also buy out. I don't think that is good here at this round, but I guess you need to gain some tempo back and hope to kill my army. He did match my text on the marksman though. The vast majority of the oil actually does land, but will it get triggered? I have been really greedy with my oil placements and managed to not really reach the point where the Vulcans trigger it. Yeah, I didn't do that well. I should have done it from here to here, I guess. It does finally land though, but there really isn't much purpose in this oil anymore. Anyhow, the tarantulas just get killed really quickly, and the Vulcans aren't that much of a problem for these marksmen anymore. They are no longer the wimpy small marksmen that they were before. However, my opponent still has more shields than I do, more shield power, and he can leverage that advantage into a marksman advantage as well. At the end of the day, I do still have a marksman on this side, but my opponent has 4 marching on that. And under a tower debuff, I don't even get to kill one of them, although it's close. New combat powers coming down. Well, here's nukes for everybody. It is time to blow everything up. Like, 2 EMPs and missiles and oil have not been enough to put significant dents into the health bars of the players. I actually decide to go for the oil again. And this time I put a different alignment on that oil so that hopefully it will work better. Or actually, did I do that? I actually already forgot. It should be better though, because these crawlers come in from here and then they should be in the line of fire of the Vulcan. More sledges coming out. I still have a good amount of money left and I definitely need to shield here. My opponent is leveling his marksmen and there is a decent amount of them, let me tell you. 3 shields are all it takes to really protect my army. The chaff I don't care that much about. Like, what's he gonna do? Nuke some crawlers? The important thing is that the shields need to hold. Now the fire is much closer to where the Vulcan is going to shoot these crawlers. So it should be decent for me, and I can basically oil every second turn. Some chaff dies, oil comes down to the ground and is instantly ignited this time. Very good, very good. It does burn my own chaff, but honestly the Vulcan would have done that very quickly anyway. Nuke does land, but the units underneath survive. My sledges have already shut off the marksman, shut off the Vulcan. But there really isn't all that many sledges left, and there's healthy shields on my opponent's side, and some late fangs that didn't go through the fire, by whatever means that happened. I do get to shut off the shields, but the marksman fight is once again pretty close. I have better marksmen in theory, but is it even going to matter all that much? No, it's not going to matter all that much. It can just move the 5 extra meters and still shoot. My opponent gains a good amount of tempo here, and he gets to have some shields. Melters, Stormcallers, but do you really need Melter when you have these marksmen? I don't think you do. Other than for EMP, but I have the sledges for that. I decide to go for the Stormcallers. It might just be time for me to get some fire on the ground. EMP for me is off cooldown already. Because, well, I have skill spec, my opponent does not. His EMP will be off cooldown next round. I don't decide to go for fire, instead decide to go for splash. At least for the moment. I think in the end I'm hitting all the buttons that I can. Well, all of the somewhat reasonable buttons that I can. Next round I will have oil, and the round after I will have oil again, and then it will be a round of pause, and then I will have oil for 2 rounds again. It is crazy. My opponent now does go for incendiary, but all of these units are shooting towards the inside. So the effect of that is actually not all that great. I decide to just add more sledge. Because you know what this board needs? It needs more sledge. I also decide to move the crawlers out of the way, so that hopefully they will not get burned all that much and can annoy my opponent for a little longer. He decides to go for range on the Stormcrawlers, I guess in an effort to protect against my marksmen, because the Stormcrawlers will still outrange these marksmen. And they will outrange them for a while. I do decide to buy out here and go for range. My opponent does the same. So eco-wise it's even. He did decide to shield. I threw my EMP so that it would hit every shield. You can see that these tarantulas are accomplishing absolutely nothing anymore. This board has become a pure Vulcan marksman versus Vulcan sledge. Versus marksman sledge. I guess sledge marksman. The Stormcrawlers are definitely a good addition to this. I still have some sledges left, but not many. They are being evaporated by a plethora of marksmen. And they are actually doing some pretty good damage. The Stormcrawlers are not exactly helping. I should be getting a tower here relatively soon, right? Yeah, they are starting to hit it. And under the tower debuff, I can do some damage to my opponent. Stormcrawlers died. I have a Stormcrawler and another marksman. Opponent still has 2 Stormcrawlers, but they are unable to kill these units. And it's 150 damage on round freaking 9. Well, no actual combat powers other than summons this round. That does not stop my opponent from taking it. He goes for a Vulcan because a Vulcan descending like back here can definitely do something with its incendiary missiles. He decides, however, to throw it on this side. I guess in an attempt to definitely devastate this side. He also has EMP again, so I need to shield this round. If I get my text shut off, this is going to be a very one-sided finish. He also unlocks oil. In my opinion, he should have done that a long time ago in order to get the best out of his skill spec. Actually, he didn't take skill spec, so forget everything I said. I now need to use 4 shields in order to shield my entire army. If he throws it straight into the middle, I think he can hit all 4 shields already. I have oil again, my opponent does, and we are basically going for a pretty good rectangular oil strike here. Is it actually oil strike? No, it's just sticky oil bomb. I guess strikes are supposed to do damage. But I guess this oil is going to do a lot of damage. It's going to kill everything that has chaff. Every chaff that is. A missile here. I guess that is to delete these fangs, but they got shield this round. Shield recently having been bumped in cost. It's now the most expensive tech at 500. There is a tech that, as the 3rd tech, is cheaper than this, which is Wasp Jump Drive. A lot of fire. My opponent did not shield. Or at least he didn't shield effectively enough. I actually didn't see if he added any shields. That was just not on my mind as I was casting this. To be fair, it's a pretty chaotic board right now. There's basically fire in the middle, but not all that much fire here. But I guess now there is. That added Vulcan definitely helping to blast through, and it's looking not particularly good for me. My marksmen have kind of been outscaled a bunch. I still have a blob of marksmen here, but there is fangs here. And they just cost me a lot. My opponent didn't even buy out, as did I. I didn't at temp range, which is probably a mistake. I lose another couple of health points, but honestly for round 11 that was not even bad. Well, the next EMP comes out. What do you guess is going to happen. EMP for me, EMP for my opponent. Was I promising too much when I said Spell Andy? Like, this is about as Spell Andy as you can get. We are 11 rounds in, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 combat powers for my opponent. I only have 6. But I have skill spec, which I think at this point is more valuable. 6 combat powers and skill spec. I decided to try and break through the shields that my opponent is surely going to have with the missile. This is going to do 3000, however, I didn't entirely calculate that. I still need to do 2000 extra damage in order for these shields to fall and get the oil in. My opponent just decides to get these crawlers. I think it would have been better to just throw that here. This time I hope I am not skipping temp range, because I think you need that every single round here. Unless you want your opponent's marksmen to all go to level 9. He adds wasps and he throws shields on him. I think at least. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, here is shields on wasps. These are going to be taking a lot of marksman fire to kill, but at the same time I do have a decent amount of marksmen. I also threw down some missile defense. You can see on this side here, there's now a decent amount of missile defense. 4 missile defense units and 4 shields. Basically, I'm spending my money on spells and, well, fire protection, really. But there isn't much protecting against all this fire. Shields were broken somewhat, so a good amount of fire did manage to land, I think. Right now, the sledges are doing so much damage, they can actually deal with the Vulcans. They have no range. And they will just get shot down as the wasps are disappearing. The fangs are doing all they can to help. I now have a decent amount of sledges left, but they are getting less by the second. Wasps have died, however, and I this time have too much. I'm not even sure what exactly changed. My opponent did get temp range. Maybe this time the sledges were just a little too much. The sledges and more delayed chaff. I guess there was less fire landing because of all these anti-missile devices. I actually have, yeah, I have 4 on the ground, and there's going to be more. Unit drop.